Canada just humiliated Donald Trump with a brutal retaliation to his jokes about them becoming the 51st state. So make sure you stick around, because this retaliation shows just how much Canadians are not liking Trump's rhetoric. But before we get into how Canada as a whole just humiliated Donald Trump, let's first talk about Canadian politicians, because we have some new reactions from them about Donald Trump's recent comments, as well as his plans for tariffs. So let's take a look at those, and then we'll take a look at how Canadians as a whole just humiliated Donald Trump.
Trump has been making this joke that Canada should be the 51st state of the United States and that Justin Trudeau could be the governor. And we know that Trump joked about this already once when Prime Minister Justin Trudeau flew down to the United States to dine with Trump. It was a joke that he made last month. We know that this has kind of come after this threat that Trump has put forward that he would put a 25% tariff on all Canadian goods coming into the United States. And we know that Trump also told NBC on Sunday that if the U.S. was, in his words, going to run up a lopsided trade deficit from Canada, that Canada might as well become one of the states. So he then took to social media last night, just after midnight, to post about this. He wrote, "It was a pleasure to have dinner the other night with Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada. I look forward to seeing the governor again soon so that we may continue our in-depth talks on tariffs and trade, the results of which will be truly spectacular for all." And so we know that the premiers will be meeting tomorrow with Trudeau, the second time, as I mentioned there. Doug Ford was asked today, Ontario's premier, what he thought about Trump's comments. Have a listen.
Well, that's the president's words. I can tell the president. I'm sure not thinking of Justin Trudeau at midnight. So if he's thinking of Justin at midnight, it's probably a good relationship. But I'm focused on making sure we get this trade deal done and making sure it's fair on both sides of the board. Let's have a fair trade.
And Ford saying that, Trump shouldn't be worried about Canada, its friend and ally, that it has other countries that, Trump should be focusing his attention on. And Ford was asked about this meeting that will be happening tomorrow afternoon, just what he's expecting. And he commented that he is hoping that the federal government has got a plan in place to strengthen the Canada-U.S. border and spend more on defense, which are two key demands that Trump has made in order to not put this tariff on Canadian goods. We did ask cabinet ministers here in Ottawa heading into their meeting today what they thought of Trump's comments. Have a listen.
The very first meeting that the president had with a G7 country was with Prime Minister Trudeau. That seems serious.
I want to remind Canadians as well as Americans that Canada's trade with the United States supports over 3 million jobs in the United States. We are taking this seriously.
Look, there's a lot of things that are said, and I don't know the context. But I do know the importance of the relationship, and that's what we need to stay centered on.
Well, it sounds like we're living in an episode of South Park.
Episode of South Park, Mark Miller there, the immigration minister, referencing, a South Park song that basically has Americans blaming Canadians for everything and accusing Canada of not being a real country. But Miller also adding in his comments there that we shouldn't be looking at social media posts to guide public policy.
Like an episode of South Park. I think that is the perfect representation of how all of us Americans have felt ever since Trump took office in 2016. And unfortunately, it just seems like things are going to continue to get worse because Trump hasn't even taken office and things are not going great. But now, let's talk about how the whole of Canada just humiliated Donald Trump, because there is a new Ledger poll which is apparently the most accurate polling firm in Canada, and what they found is devastating for Donald Trump. So let's take a look at this poll. So here we can see a pretty simple poll that asks the question, would you or would you not like Canada to become the 51st state of the United States? And an overwhelming majority said, no, I would not. 5% said, I don't know, or I would prefer not to answer, and only 13% said, yes, I would. Only 13%. That is an insanely small number. These days, it's really hard to find things that are almost fully unanimous, but for this to be one of those few things that are, is very telling for what Canada is thinking right now. But to be honest, this isn't really surprising, because ever since Donald Trump made those comments, Canadians online have been overwhelmingly criticizing him. Speaking of which, if you are watching from Canada, first of all, welcome, but second, please leave a comment below and let us Americans know what you truly think of Donald Trump and his rhetoric. I'm very interested to hear what you have to say. But overall, I love to see Canada coming together and just overwhelmingly saying, no, we don't want Trump. And honestly, I wish as an American that the country agreed with you, but unfortunately, we just have too many crazies in this country.